Love is Not Enough by Mark Manson. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self-growth? Why wouldn't you want to make self-growth normal? Then make sure to smash that like button. If you've seen my other reviews of his work, you know I'm a fan. He started with his book Models that created sort of like a long tail, maybe ripple effect in the online community of pickup artistry. Followed it with one of the most important self-help books of the 21st century. I would argue The Subtle Art sold over 2 million copies in its first week. And a few years later, he was like, wow, this is a huge wave I'm still riding. Let's just keep it going, shall we? And he dropped his third book, Everything. So he drops this Audible exclusive all of a sudden at the end of March, and I'm like, what is this strange gift basket sitting at my doorstep? How is it different from Models? It was pretty unexpected if you ask me. Is it actually good? It's kind of a switch to not see a profanity in the title. What can you expect from this audiobook? And his answer to that question, what can you expect from it, is very different from mine. And why is that? Well, I'm gonna talk about all that stuff in this review. The first two sentences of this audiobook are literally, in 1967, John Lennon co-wrote a song called All You Need Is Love. He also beat his wife, abandoned one of his children, verbally abused his gay Jewish manager with homophobic and anti-Semitic slurs, and once invited a photographer to do a photo shoot of him and his wife lying naked in bed for an entire day. On the other hand, Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails did just about the complete opposite. Nine Inch Nails, that's kind of saying something. The author says that we idealize love. We treat it like the solution to our pain and struggle. And our relationships pay the price because we overestimate its power. When we do this, we are quick to forget the underlying ideals that relationships are based on. If love is really the answer to everything, if all you need is love, why worry about honesty, trust, loyalty, and humility? Side note, you can say whatever you want about this guy and his occasionally immature writing style. The profanity, not like I haven't slashed him for it. Some people have called him misogynistic, which is a topic for more than one video that probably isn't even mine. I haven't heard anyone disagree with him about the importance of values in everyday human life. Values are the most constant thing, the most constant thread, theme, piece of DNA strand, whatever verbiage we're trying to use here, in every Manson book up to this one, and it's really, kind of funny to me, especially because I've done this. For some reason, like the author's writing style or their views on one incredibly particular subject, or where the author is now 20 years later than when they were during the writing of the book, because of these things, the book is just absolutely unbearable. And yet, the fundamental, subject of the book is very rarely questioned. Like, really questioned. They may criticize a part of how it's delivered, but I feel like they don't realize it. Before he did all this self-development writing on basic stoicism and Buddhist principles, many of his readers now seem to overlook the fact that his blog was originally put together for the purpose of dating advice. And it turned into this whole mastermind of how to find and start and keep successful relationships. Again, the values of everyday life, the foundational pieces of why these things are even important to us. I'm surprised that I haven't heard another author talk about them as in-depth as he has. So for Manson to put together a book or audiobook or whatever about straight-up relationships, it's something that I've wanted for quite some time without maybe even realizing it. There's an Audible exclusive called Kick-Ass by Mel Robbins, where Mel sits down with 6 people and untangles deep issues that have been occurring for years or decades. And Manson does the same in this book, except he is with 5 people, and it's through multiple sessions through a span of 6 months, I think. But Kick-Ass is the closest thing to structurally or productionally, whatever the word is, that I've heard. So I guess I'm kind of using that as a reference. There will be no spoilers in this review. I will start drinking spoiled milk in my life before I put spoilers in my book reviews. In this audiobook, you will notice probably patterns about yourself. You'll see what trauma does to us, the subtle power of boundaries, and how the ability to say and hear the word no can really help us achieve greater intimacy. You'll learn about fantasy and why we tend to get swept up by our own emotions, believing things that are totally untrue. That, and of course, being open and honestly vulnerable. There's vulnerability, but there's honest vulnerability. I think that that is what you can expect from this book, a lot of that stuff. But he says that the goal is to form a universal framework for healthy relationships. And he also says there are blunt conversations about, sex, abuse, infidelity, mental health, and the like. Personally, I feel like they were not nearly as blunt and extreme as the stuff that was talked about in Badass, or probably other books of this nature. One thing I really liked was just considering the fact that Mark Manson has very little experience talking to people. Like straight up sessions of like solving people's problems one-on-one really seem like a skill that can be very different from what he's used to. So it's really refreshing to hear what kind of sounded like him expanding his comfort zone a little. That, let alone his voicing, which was very solid for someone with minimal experience. He hasn't narrated any of his other books until this one, so I hope he narrates all his books after this one. In Boundaries, Chapter 2, it's obvious to me that these people are fans of his work. They know how to kind of take a step back, look at things objectively, and speaking to Mark, they actually kind of laugh at points when they realize finally how irrational a lot of their behaviors are, at least in the beginning of the book. Throughout the whole thing, there is really not that much like crying or anything, which surprised me a lot actually. And he says here that he loves causing breakups because a lot of the time, a relationship is reinforcing very, very deep unconscious behaviors that people have, and it just does not respect the autonomy of the people in the relationships. Does that make sense? I also got a lot out of what he was saying regarding narcissists and codependents, and how it's so common for them to find each other and how they rely on each other to keep causing chaos in a relationship. It's just this never-ending cycle, seemingly, because they find some sort of a sense of safety in it. The chapter about power struggles, I started thinking about myself and my past, and chances are if you check out books like this, you probably will have realized either how much you have or maybe haven't changed over the years. He says, one way to determine whether your relationship is healthy is whether it seems to make the rest of your life easier and more productive, or it seems to sap away your energy in other pursuits, relationships, and hobbies to keep the cycle going. It really is that type of relationship book that you check out, and there are so many aha moments. Same thing with models. Something that's a little strange to me though about the book is that, well, yes, the importance of underlying values in relationships is just as high, if not more, than straight up love. Is it? That's at least what the book is probably trying to convey. However, it seems like so much of the time and the focus is spent like educating the listener and the people he's talking to in it simply about different things that occur in and out of problematic relationships, which isn't exactly a bad thing. I mean, I learned a lot. Again, it's very valuable to learn from other people's mistakes. Again, the aha moments, but is all that really so closely tied to foundational values in a relationship when people think that love is all you need? I can assure you I know far less than Mark Manson, so please do not assume that I think I'm an expert here, but something about that just left me a little confused because of especially how consistently Mark Manson has been able to stick to the importance of values in everyday human life throughout his bibliography. So you learn a lot about like toxic behaviors in relationships, but you also learn about them in depth, and in a way that's like, I mean, hey man, this is Mark Manson. I don't know if you would expect anything less than accessible. What he says about vulnerability, talking to someone at this one point, is pretty interesting. He has no trouble opening up and explaining how he feels. The problem is he doesn't know how to manage those emotions once they're out. The whole book has like these striking moments. It's full of them. And chances are you'll probably find one person who you relate to just a little bit more than others. Overall, I'm not sure he got exactly to the core of what he was looking to. The concept is amazing, very unique, despite how many times I've probably heard the 4 words in the title of the book before. This is a pretty experimental sort of venture for him, nonetheless, so I sort of understand. I learned a lot about boundaries, some unique perspectives on power struggles and relationships, vulnerability, and I really liked the insights he brought to the table. And you really do feel, by the way, like you are sitting with him and the client and you're listening to them and enjoying the ambiance of the conversation. But I imagine if I re-listened, I probably wouldn't re-listen intentionally for anything much more than that. Unless one of his huge fans, or maybe even he, reached out to me, I've been tagging him relentlessly in my Instagram stories, and gave me the chance to very briefly speak with him about it. And he's like, no bro, I hear what you're saying, but like, you know, there's some stuff that you're kind of missing, and here's what it is. That's something that personally I think a lot more authors should be doing, especially the bigger a reviewer's audience gets. It's my least favorite Manson book, which probably isn't saying much, because Manson's a personal favorite self-help author of mine, but really only because I'm kind of convinced that it didn't do what it was constructed to do. At the same time, it was kind of an experiment for him, let alone an Audible exclusive. Quotes, "Every person you've been with has one thing in common, you. The only way to win a power struggle is not to play. Improving yourself aimlessly becomes pointless or even masturbatory if you're not sharing that somehow. I may be a slow learner, but I'm not a no learner. Relationships are simple, they're just difficult. Direction 1. I recommend this book for really anyone who's had trouble with relationships in the past and doesn't know why but wants to know why. Direction 2. If you like this book, you might like what's it called? Attached by Rachel Heller and Amir Levine. I almost said Adam Levine. That, as well as Models, also by Manson. Models, particularly if you're single and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? Maybe I should get back into this relationship dating thing that people are talking about. Love Is Not Enough by Mark Manson. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below, and also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my reviews and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.